so we got this frizzle job here, and we have one simple cabinet that has a left and right side, top and bottom, and a middle partition. And also this one's gonna get a face frame on it later. We already talked about putting face frames together one day, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so I want to start with these sides and the half-inch sides. So this is all done over there. So I'm not So I usually, right away, I pick it up, I'm going to mark it, you know, the right side up, 3 right side, frizzle bookcase. And then the bottom, if you look at the drawing, the bottom it says it's 4 and 11/16 up. So I measure 4 11/16 and put a line, that's where the bottom goes into the side. And then from there I'll go over and do the holes. So I find we have preset stops, but if they don't work well for this, I try to line that up in the middle and then cut a piece for here. It's about 4. I probably did that 4 1/4. Instead of it's a pain to change the stops every time. Most of the time we could use those. This is just a short cabinet, so I have to line it up in here. And so I'll just put a block in there and use that. Now, this thing has different indexes, but I think that one was for, I don't know. They were set for 2-foot cabinet, but and the one over here goes right to 1 1/4. But since these cabinet widths vary a lot, I just measure the first one. I'll put a little mark, 1 1/4, and then go to it. It's quicker than changing all the stops underneath.
Does that clamp in place at that spot?
No.
So you have to be holding it.
I'm holding it there. There is an index. It's set back here right now, but
They're all so different.
it's time consuming to change that. To change that for each cabinet is a pain. These cabinets vary so much in width. It's just as quick to measure and put a mark there.
So, and so to actually hold that in place while the whole drill bit is
Yeah, and I
down.
just hold that where it is. If it's close, you know, within the 16th or so, it's fine. And then, and of course, that one indexes 1 1/2. You go, drill your hole. Now, since this one's got a face frame, I'm going to put pocket holes in it to screw the face frame on from the back. And that's this machine over here. Now the 1/2-inch plywood, the holes get centered better if you use, we put this 1/8 inch on top here. When we do the holes in 1/2 inch, they get centered better in it. Or else if you don't, they're too close to the edge. So we use that with 1/2 inch, and with 3/4 we just, you know, go right to the table.
What about 1 inch?
1 inch, you just go right on the table.
And
We don't make cabinets 1 inch very often.
Okay.
Now you check that. Yeah, this has been a problem lately. This drill bit's been loosening up, so I'm just checking to make sure it's not loose. It just vibrates loose after a while. You might need to get some Loctite or something. Yeah, I just hold that against here and tap on that, and it does your holes. I put them, I don't know, you know, approximately 6 inches, 5, 6 inches apart, 4, 5, 6 inches.
So the finish side goes up. Did you have a finish side?
Yeah, finish size up.
Yeah, you learn.
And I try to,
pretty quick if you had that finish side down. Hold something
And I
like
try to miss these, I try to go in between these holes for the shelves, so we're not notching into the shelf hole. Alright? And that one's all ready. The other side is exactly the same. I'm not going to go over it again. Do the same thing. Now we're going to go to the bottom. This is the bottom. So we're going to biscuit that in place to position it and keep it more stable. And so it says it's 28 7/16 from the end, so I'll take and measure 28 7/16, put a little mark and X where I want my biscuits so I don't get my line confused. And I always cut these from one side so I don't get confused. I always do them from the front. And I always like to, and you know, there's only one, I usually measure from the right side most of the time, just so when I'm doing all these, I have a consistent pattern and I don't get mixed up. You know, I did 28 17 from the right side, I'm going from the front. It's nice to keep in a pattern. And then you'll go on here and put one of these down to your line. Right there. You can clamp her. Then figure out what biscuit holes are best to use. You don't want to get too close to the edge because if you screw this, you don't want to screw right by the edge or it could split the other board going into it. So I like to keep them in a little bit, you know. Inch and a half at least, and then so I did 12, 7. You got to remember where you did these. 2 3/4, 7, and 12 is where I put the biscuits. Yeah, I just put this thing here and line up with here's the center line in the back of it, and line it up there and put it on and go. And then, of course, we take it over there and we put pockets in it for the face frame on the bottom, front edge. So that one's done. Now we have a middle partition that has to go there. Now here's where you got to be careful. So I'm going to mark this, okay, partition, it's going up. So it's positioned like that. Now those biscuits, you know, with the face of this forward, I biscuited that with the biscuiter like that. So this end has to go down when I use my biscuits. So you're indexing off the same surface. You know, because I indexed from here, so I got to index, you know, the cutter from the same side on the partition. Because this is not centered in the middle of the wood. It's offset a little bit. So you gotta pay attention to what side you're doing it from. So this is okay. It was done from this side, so I have to have that down, and then I'll go here and mark where those spots were. There was a little mark here before. There's 2 3/4, 7, and 12. And then, you know, biscuit it at those points. And I marked it, you know, the face was against the fence. Okay, now, here's where it's real easy to make a mistake. The shelf holes on this outside one are indexed from the top. This one, the middle one, has got the top screw strip on top of it. So when we do these holes, that's where we had it before. We have to add a piece of 3/4. That's your screw strip. It didn't do the holes, or else the holes won't line up. Now, when I'm doing it, both sides of this have shells, so I have to do the other side. Now these I put in 1.5 inches because I don't want the holes to go through. And if they're here off, they'll be, you know, a little weird. So I offset them a little bit on this side. I'll put the measurements in a little bit off. I put these at 1.5 inches. And I always like to do 1.5 inches because a lot of times the hinge holes line up with them. They get in the, you know, you have to plug them, but hopefully this will be all right.
1.5 inches or 1.25 inches?
Well, I like
Inch and a
1.25 is a standard, but when I have double side, I don't want to line them up.
Okay.
You
So-
don't want to be able to see through there.
Yeah, you don't want to see through a hole, so I offset them on the other side.
Yeah, it's not because it is see-through, it's more that it's, if it's a little off, it's starting to get weird with the holes. with the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah, it'll mess up the.
One side 1.25 inches, one side 1.5 inches.
Yeah. Yeah, and, okay. And of course, that one doesn't get any pockets because it's in the middle. The back one, we don't need to do anything to,
I know.
but the front one, of course, we have to put pockets in for the face frame. Now, this is a very simple cabinet. Some of these get a little bit more complicated. You know, if we have a finished side, we can't just, it'll be 3/4 of an inch, and we'll have to biscuit that. Same basic procedure. Anything else, Peter?
No, the only thing what I do, if I take, let's say I take this and make my mark, you know, at 28, 7/16 or whatever it is, you made it here.
Yeah.
What I do is, there's a measurement on the other side too, right?
Yeah.
So I just double check and make a mark there too, or make sure.
Yeah.
You basically
good.
check it and see if it's right.
It's good to
If you-
check.
Both sides.
Yeah.
It could be the plans are wrong, or this is cut
Yeah.
wrong. In that moment, you will catch it.
Yeah.
When you always, if you have possibility, check on both sides. Mark on one, but
Yeah. That's something I probably should have went over first. Is
That's good, Pete.
just check to make sure the parts are the right size, because sometimes they, you know, we make mistakes. That one's supposed to be 14 3/4, 57 5/8. Yeah. Just probably good before you even start to check the sizes. Now this one, this center one, when it's cut, this might end up being a little bigger because plywood is not always 3/4. So when I have them cut these ones that go in between, I have them measure and see if we got 1.5 inches. And so when I put that there, I got, you know, maybe a 32nd or so under, or maybe a little more. And on my cut sheet, I'll put plus on there, and when JT cuts, or anybody who's cutting the plywood, you check how thick that is, and add that to there. Sometimes you might not need to add anything. Sometimes it might be a 32nd, sometimes it might be a 16th. That helps keep this cabinet more even and square. It's important to do that, and anything that goes in between like that.